My talk is going to be about pre-Islamic Ottoman shrines on the island. I'd like to make clear that my piece of work is based on the traditional myths and legends of the Turkish Cypriot people on the island regarding their shrines and dedicated saints. Also, I'll be using original names of villages, but I'll try to use the Turkish ones as well, so we know where they are on the map. With the conquest of Cyprus in 1571, the Ottomans constructed numerous buildings, mosques, fountains, hammams, Islamic schools, libraries and caravans, and they also restored churches. Many tombs were erected over the burial places of martyrs and saints. The tombs of those soldiers who fell during the campaign can be seen in the narrow streets of Nicosia and other major towns throughout Cyprus. Tombs were also erected over noble statesmen, religious scholars, mystics during the Ottoman period. Now, in December last year, I visited Cyprus to do some research on our topic. My actual visit was to see some of the heritage in the south. And while I was crossing through Bostancı, which is known as originally Zotga, to go to Pirestronia, which was a very old Turkish Cypriot settlement, while passing through the checkpoint, I had to show my passport to the Greek Cypriot office. And what I noticed on the map, noticed in the office, was a large map, two large maps actually, of Cyprus. But there was pictures of churches and saints, and there was hundreds and hundreds of saints. And I said to the lady, "Can I take a picture of this?" And she said, "Of course you can." And while looking at the picture, I noticed it was a map of where all their saints were, and they have a lot of saints. That's one thing I'm going to say, the Greeks. So everywhere is Aya or Ios. But what's not very much known in our community, unfortunately, is that we have a lot of saints as well throughout the island. And Cyprus is home to many saints, martyrs, and even early companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as mentioned by my dear friends here. Tombs and sacred sites dedicated to these people can be found across the island. It would be impossible for me today to discuss all of the shrines and saints, there are too many of them, which were once and still very popular pilgrimage sites for the Muslims and the Turks of Cyprus. Some of these holy sanctuaries as well are revered by the Christian Greek population and also by the Latins. And I will try to mention this in my talk and explain that today. In Cyprus, the most important and sacred place for Muslims is none other than Hala Sultan Tekke, found near the Salt Lake in Larnaca. It is the most important place for Muslims on the island and is still a popular pilgrimage site, which preserves the remains of the maternal aunt of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, while accompanying her husband to Cyprus in the year 649 AD. Hala Sultan, of course, is a Turkish title for who? Haram bint Milhan. Haram, the daughter of Milhan. And she was a sister to the foster aunt of the Prophet Muhammad. Her sister, Halima Sa'ida, was the wet nurse to the Prophet. During his life, the Prophet Muhammad was extremely fond of her family and often visited their house and ate with them. After his farewell pilgrimage, and close to the time of his death, the Prophet visited her, and after his meal, he fell asleep. As Hala Sultan was combing his hair with her fingers, he woke up smiling and told her that he had been dreaming that his nation, the followers of Islam, were on a sea voyage, and he saw in his dream the isles of the sea being conquered by his army. She asked him if he could pray for her to be with them. He prayed and then slept again. When he woke up this time, he told her that he had seen the same dream and that on this time she was with him. Of course, after hearing this, Hala Sultan got very excited and wanted to be on this naval expedition. Years later, and after the Prophet's dream, and during the reign of the third Caliph Othman, between 644 and 656, the first Islamic naval was established in Syria. Their first destination was to be Cyprus, due to its strategic importance for Syria, Turkey, and Egypt. Hala Sultan, with her husband, Ubaidah bin Samit, joined the first campaign as volunteers in 649. Due to their old age, the fleet commander initially did not want to take them. But when she related that the Prophet Muhammad's dream and vision, he agreed and let them both join the voyage. In fact, after arrival in Cyprus, and in the midst of extreme bravery, being confronted by local armed forces, we are told that she fell from her horse, instantly broke her neck, and died. Hence she was the first Islamic martyr, what we call shaheed, on the island. The grave was discovered during the Ottoman period, and in 1760, Sheikh Hassan Effendi built the shrine that we know today. Later on, the Hala Sultan Tekke was to be extended to accommodate various facilities, including guest rooms, accommodation. The shrine became an important monument to Islam on the island and was used by various orders of Sufis during the Ottoman and British periods. Now, the tomb in which the body of Haram Hala Sultan was laid is actually a prehistoric structure consisting of 3 enormous stones, 2 of which are upright and support a third which lies horizontally against them. After the construction of the Tekke, a legend began to spread across the island by the Muslim visitors and population regarding these 3 large stones. A translation of an 18th century Ottoman manuscript gives an account to this story. The story says, on her journey, Hala Sultan's journey, from Jerusalem to Ramallah in Palestine, the Blessed Lady alighted on her way as a guest at the house of a Christian monk. She beheld in the courtyard 3 huge stones, like columns, and to show a marvel and display of saintship, she desired to buy them, and said to the monk that she desired to buy these stones. The monk, fully persuaded of the impossibility of transporting such stones and carrying them away, gave them as a present and gift to the Blessed Lady. She accepted them and said, "Let them remain by way of trust. In due time they will be taken away," and departed. On the evening of her burial, the said stones, by the might of the lords of the world, moved from their place, floating across the sea, and one of them set itself at her sacred head, one at her holy feet, and the other stone, as though suspended over them, rested there by the power of God, according to the 18th century Ottoman manuscript. This is how the legend and story of the 3 stones spread across the island, making Hala Sultan Tekke the most visited shrine by the Muslim population of the island. The Tekke also homes some important Ottoman statesmen and tombs of sheikhs who resided at the sanctuary. In the 1930s, due to its important sacred status, the wife of the exiled king of Hejaz, which is the king of Mecca, Hüseyin bin Ali, his wife Queen Adila Hatice Hüseyin, who was half Turkish and the daughter of a pasha, and the great-grandmother of the current king of Jordan, was to be laid to rest in the outer chambers of the Tekke after she had passed away in Cyprus under British colonial rule while she was in exile. There are several shrines that are claimed to or believed to be among the first campaigns or Islamic campaigns in Cyprus. One of these shrines is the shrine of Tekke, or Shrine of the Holy 40, known by the Greek population as Aya Saranda, which means exactly the same thing, 40 saints. The shrine is found in the Masorian plain, Messalia, near the outskirts of the village of Dimbu. Dimbu is the old name for, which is called now Kırklar, and if anybody wants to know where it is, it's actually south of the airport of Ercan. The shrine is believed to be the resting place of 40 martyrs who died in the 7th century. A tekke was constructed here in the Ottoman period over the cave tombs of the 40 martyrs or saints. According to local tradition and legend, 40 soldiers were buried here after a fierce battle had taken place. And it is believed that an early Islamic settlement was founded just north of the shrine in the village known as Aya Kebir. Today it's known as Dilekkaya. Aya Kebir, the original name of this settlement, is a mixture of Greek and Arabic words. Aya meaning saints in Greek, and Kebir is great, so the place of great saints. The village of Aya Kebir has been a Turkish populated village since the Ottoman Empire, and some villagers claim that some of them are descendants of the first Muslims who came to the island in the 7th century. This is a claim by some of the older villagers, of course. Sir Harry Luke, who was born in London in 1884 and worked as private secretary to the High Commissioner of Cyprus and Famagusta between 1911 and 1920, mentions the shrine of Kırklar in his book Cyprus, A Portrait and Appreciation. Sir Harry Luke had befriended the sheikh and custodian of the Tekke, who is mentioned as Sheikh Muhammad in his book, and the Sufi rituals held at the shrine are given in detail by Harry Luke himself. Sir Harry Luke would often visit the shrine during rituals. These rituals continued at the shrine until the early 1960s. From the rituals described by Sir Harry Luke, we know that the sheikh belonged to the Rufai spiritual order, which was common in the early Ottoman period and one of the most influential Sufi orders of the Middle East. But we must also remember that many other Sufi orders practiced at the shrine of the 40. And during the Ottoman and British periods, we know that Bektashi, order of Sufism, which was the main order of the Janissary corps, had also served at the shrine. Qadri and Mevlevi dervishes also visited the shrine from time to time. After the Tanzimat period and reforms, the shrine was handed to the Naqshbandi order of Cyprus. It is a matter of interest to point out that the shrine was considered holy by local Greek villagers and Christians. They refer in the site as Aya Saranda, the Holy 40 Saints, and believe that the tombs belong to 40 saints who had come to Cyprus to preach monotheism in the early 7th century. The shrine became more famous after a local landowner had prayed at the shrine for the restoration of his sick son who had been ill. He had vowed to give up 200 dunams of land to the Tekke if his son was healed. Within weeks of the landowner's pledge, the son's health was restored. The landowner kept his word and gave the Tekke 200 dunams, registering this as the Çiftlik of Kırklar, which is still until today under the administration of the Efgaf of Cyprus. Like many places in the Near East, religious sites considered sacred by various communities actually brought a sense of unity towards people from different races and religions. For example, until the 1940s, Kırklar Tekke was famous for its festival, which we know is called Panayır or Panayiris in Greek. Every year on the 9th of March, stalls were set up at the entrance of the shrine, and locals would come by foot or by donkey to sell their local products and pray at the shrine. While Muslims would pray in turn at the small masjid or small mosque at the Tekke, or read their Mevlid recitals would take place, the Christians would visit the tombs inside the Turba area, lighting candles to the saints. Since they bought these candles at the site, the local dervishes controlling the shrine generated an income for the Tekke from these joint activities. So what we see actually is like these religious shrines are bringing communities together. The shrine, like many others, becomes a target during the intercommunal violence that began to spread across the island in the late 1950s. Nationalists on both sides forced communities not to participate in joint prayers, panahirs and festivals at the shrine. Local men sent warnings to the Christians not to visit the shrine, and on the 6th of July 1958, during an attack on the Tekke, Sheikh Mehmed Hilmi Efendi was burnt to death. The site was ransacked and parts of the Tekke was burnt and destroyed, and this caused great fear to both communities, who eventually abandoned the shrine, and by 1963 it fell into complete disrepair. The shrines and sites in Cyprus that we are discussing today all belong to various Sufi dervish orders, and they were all turbes, tombs or tekkes. It is also important to point out that all of these shrines are founded on myths and legends that refer to a time that predates the Ottoman conquest of the island. The shrines usually consist of a tekke, built near turbe, a tomb, where at least one or several saints or martyrs, shehida, is situated. The Muslim foundation legends usually assign these tombs to Muslim martyrs who were killed fighting infidels during the Arab conquest of the 7th century. For the Christians, these tombs, they believe, belong to holy persons, people that came from the Near East to spread the teaching of monotheism. Only 14 Sufi tekkes survived from the Ottoman period and continued to function into the 20th century. Of these 3 were known to be used by Christians as well. As mentioned, Kırklar Tekke, Ayasaranda, was one of these. The other is found in Tuzla, in Larnaca. This tekke, called Torabi, was believed by Muslims to be the resting place and the grave of an African companion of Hala Sultan, who local people called Torabi Dede or Torabi Baba. For the Greeks, this site was known as Aios Therapon, a legendary dark-skinned saint who came from the east. According to the legend, his tomb was discovered after a dervish saw him in his dream. The body was discovered, preserved, and a tekke was built over the shrine. This tekke passed through various Sufi orders during the Ottoman period, but we do know that there are accounts in Ottoman documents that the Rufai and the Bektashi group of dervishes had activities in the tekke. Most of the dervishes had no problem with Christians visiting the shrine or the site. As most visitors would leave offerings, this helped in maintaining the tekke. It is important to add that these sanctuaries also played an important role in attracting people from different faiths. Until recently, many sheikhs, dervishes, or monks had been believed to possess spiritual powers for curing people from certain illnesses. For example, Sheikh Ali Faik Effendi, who was one of the last sheikhs of the Torabi Tekke, was visited not only by Muslim locals, but also from local Christians. And the sheikh had a separate study room where he would treat his patients, and Greeks would also take amulets that we call in Turkish muska, and the Greeks would call hamali, that he would produce, and they believed it would help them and cure their children from the evil eye. The shrine and tekke of Hazreti Umar, found on the northern coast of Cyprus, is also believed to be the final resting and burial place of 7 Muslim warriors who died in the 7th century. It is believed that their commander was named Omar, hence the tekke is named Hazreti Umar. Nothing to do with Umar the Caliph, of course, from the early century. But there is no recorded evidence of someone, a warrior, being called Omar. Again, this is due to myths and legends. Behind the tekke is a cave. It is in this cave that the remains of 7 men were discovered, all well preserved and believed to be the bodies of saints or martyrs. According to the legend, these martyrs were Muslims who were slain in the area and buried together in a nearby cave. After the discovery of the remains in the Ottoman period, the remains were reburied in what is now the Tekke, and everybody knows the Hazreti Tekke. The shrine was also considered to be sacred by local Christians who claimed the shrine was the resting place of an unknown saint, foreign saint, called Ayos Banodes. Both Christians and Muslims prayed at this sanctuary for centuries without any conflict. In the town of Larnaca, another Tekke mosque, which was constructed during the late Ottoman period, contains a tomb. Again, according to the legend, a body was discovered of a preserved man considered to be a saint and was named Zuhuri. Now those who know Turkish means Zuhur, to be found, to be discovered. So they discovered this body and the mosque is built above him. The Tekke actually became a landmark in Larnaca, and many locals began to donate land and shops around the Tekke. By the 18th century, the Tekke grew into a large complex with many shops, a market, an Islamic school, and a lodge. Very recently, plans to revamp this mosque and its surrounding buildings has caused conflict between the Larnaca municipalities and the Turkish Cypriot religious authorities, who have complained that the mayor of Larnaca has not consulted the rightful owners of the plans to revamp the mosque area. Now my last piece will be on a shrine that everybody's it's a very famous shrine, and it's mentioned by my dear friends here, Apostolos Andreas. Now Apostolos Andreas, the monastery founded at the furthest point of the Carpathian Peninsula, this once small, unknown chapel that was constructed on an earlier pagan site is believed by locals to be the place where the Apostle Andrew visited. The story says that the ship transporting St. Andrew to the Holy Land went off course and struck rocks. When Andrew came off the ship and requested water from some locals, he was turned away, and then he strikes his staff onto the ground and a spring gushed forth. It was believed the waters had healing powers, as one of the captains of the ship was blind in one eye, and according to the legend, after washing his face with the water from the holy spring, his sight was restored. By the 15th century, a small chapel was founded here and only visited by locals. The Muslims of Carpathia also visited the shrine and claimed it was the resting station of an Islamic saint called Sayyid Ahmet Bedavi, who is buried in Cairo. They believe that the saint had visited the chapel and rested and prayed there on his way to Egypt. Now, from different sources of local people from the area, some of the older generation say that the Mevlevi dervishes from Lefkoşa, when visiting the Turkish Cypriot villages of the area, Ayosimios, Avtepe, Kurova, Gorovia, and Galinoborni, Ayos Andronigos, Yeshilko, they would also go to Apostolos Andreas and have their rituals there in the past. Both local Christians and Muslims visited the shrine, taking with them vessels of water from the spring, which they both believed was holy water. The shrine only became famous after an Anatolian Greek lady, Maria Georgiou, claimed that the saint visited her in a dream after she had prayed for years in search of her son, who went missing in Anatolia. The story says that in the dream, the saint commands her to come to Cyprus to make a pilgrimage to his site. She sets off from Anatolia, and she, on the boat, befriends a young dervish. After speaking to the young dervish, the miracle of God, as the story says, she discovers that the dervish is her son, and they make the trip together to Apostolos Andreas, which is an unknown place for most Cypriots. And then the story spreads across the whole of Cyprus, making Apostolos Andreas the most monastery of the whole of Cyprus. The major monastery we see today was constructed in 1921. Today the monastery still attracts many Cypriots from both faiths. I'd also like to point out couple of things. Now the Greeks have a lot of awliya, they have lots of female saints, and in Cyprus, the Turks also have Hala Sultan, of course, which is the most important shrine. But we also find in the Limassol area, we find in the village of Aleptora, Huzuri Sultan. She's a saint that they believe was from the 7th century, discovered in a dream. And after the person who had this dream digs and finds the sarcophagus of this holy woman, Tekke is constructed there. Also nearby, not very far from Aleptora, in the village of Evliya, we have the shrine of Emetullah Sultan. Also in the same region we find Zehra Sultan Tekkesi. Another one is also Hatice Sultan. Unfortunately, the only two of these Tekkas that remain today is the Hala Sultan Tekke and also Aleptora Huzuri Sultan Tekkesi. These are still standing today. And that's where I will end my speech. I hope it's been beneficial, that we learn a little bit about the saints and the myths and the legends around Cyprus. Thank you all.